Joe, is that the same with Musical.ly in terms of kind of developing what you do around the world?
Yeah, Musical.ly currently is a non-consumer facing brand, so we're very much about providing services to the artists and venues that want to use the service. And we've very much grown word of mouth, I suppose, because we're selling a lot more tickets now and there's a lot more on our website, people see our logo a lot more, and we've been around long enough for this to be developed some trust. But we've not spent any money whatsoever on online or print marketing. I suppose my salary and my job is the marketing budget. Mark also attends things like this, and you know, so for us it's very much about meeting people, talking to them, and then helping people get set up and give, you know, provide a good service, and then let other people tell them that you should work with us. That's how it's worked so far.
And Adrian, with Portmanteau, you do business with people in lots of different places around the world. So how's that kind of come about? What's enabled you to meet those contacts?
The way I did it initially was actually going on a UK trade investment mission to Los Angeles.
So that's a government-funded organisation?
It's a government-funded organisation that exists to help UK businesses export their services and products around the world. And so it's a combination of funding, advice.
Working is just, you know, being in the right place and pushing your business card in, you know, in somebody's hand. But I would say it's much more simple, and it's almost a bit more counterintuitive. But you shouldn't be thinking about what you're trying to get out of the relationship. You should actually focus first on what the other person will get out of it. And you know, Dubber, who I know is a good friend of you, he always says, you know, the two most important things when networking is being interesting and being helpful. Because if you can always be saying, you know, how can I help this person? You know, you tell me, if I meet someone who's going to be useful, what should I tell them about what you're doing? Because then they're probably going to reciprocate. And I think that really resonates in the music industry. And also, if you're an artist, it's not just the business side, but as an artist, it's making friends with other bands. You know, if there's a band and they're going on tour, if you've helped them, then they're going to be like, why don't you come and support the tour? Or, you know, if you're tweeting about their music, you know, then they're likely to go and tweet it to their fans, and that's going to be, you know, 10,000 people who didn't know about you before. So, yeah, before thinking about yourself, just always think about, you know, what can I do for that other person, just be helpful. And in my experience over the last 10 years of really being religious to that, I would say it's probably paid back. Everything that I've helped other people with, it's always like paid back tenfold. So.
Joe, is there a setting that is particularly good for networking in? A conference, at a bar, you know, where is the best place to kind of forge those relationships?
In the UK and the US, I do most of my networking in a dark, loud room at a venue or a bar over a beer. And I find very often the best business is done with a drink and in a relaxed setting, and then you get on well and you kind of share a bit about what you're doing, and then you follow it up with a day meeting somewhere. For me, that works. It works that way around, whereas for other people, sometimes they get on better during the day, and then eventually that'll turn into a dinner or something. But yeah, so that's what I do.
Okay.
Between the hours of 9 PM and 3 in the morning.
In terms of sort of growing your business, you know, once you've got the idea, once you've got a really cool product, I guess one of the most important things is kind of financing that, raising the money to make it happen, to build your team, to raise awareness of your product. How did you guys go about raising finance in the early stages of your business?
Do you want to go? The early stage of Musical.ly, we met our main investor, who's from Mumbai, over a poker table, and we got to know him over the poker table, and he wrote us a cheque for 300 grand. And
it might just beat him in a hand.
We beat him, and he kind of liked us, and yes, he wrote us a cheque, and he'd done very well. He moved from from Mumbai to the UK about 30 years ago. He set up a children's clothing business, and he kind of wanted to try his hand at something else. So, you know, he really believed in my boss, and, you know, gave us the start-up money. And then now we're an established business. We're currently in the process of raising money when we've got those meetings, and unfortunately they're not as relaxing as over a game of poker anymore.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we probably consider ourselves as much of a web and a technology company as we are a music company, but you know, in the kind of web startup world, there's probably two very traditional routes. One would be to kind of, you know, self-finance and just grow from there. So it's a very slow build, but you know, you're kind of, you know, you've got to really stick at it and, you know, slowly, gradually get up there. And the second would be, there's actually a very kind of natural path of, you know, you bootstrap, which is where you don't have any money, but you've got an idea and you're just prototyping. So you know, when I first started at SoundCloud, I was working 6 days a week, but I was only getting paid 3 days a week. You know, I now have an abundance of SoundCloud t-shirts, as many people know, but back then I was printing my own SoundCloud t-shirts. And then you move from that, you usually get some kind of seed investment, which would be someone who really believes in what you're doing. They're not going to take you all the way, but they, you know, you've got proof of concept, you just want to take it to the next level. So we had some seed funding, and that can often be from partners that you have as well. So in our case, we actually had seed funding from a company called Ableton, who make music software. And then you go into a VC stage, where typically that's someone who comes and backs you because that, you know, you prove that you've got traction, you know, and now they want to give you, you know, $1 million or something like that because they want to see you get bigger. And I think we're at the stage now, we've had 2 rounds of institutional like VC funding, and our latest round of investment is a company that also backs Twitter, Tumblr, Foursquare. So we're now at the stage where, you know, they've done that because they really now want to kind of hit the home run. They want to see SoundCloud be one of the top 10 you know, websites in the world, and they kind of believe in that mission. And the reason for giving all that background is I actually think that's, if you think about it, that's really analogous with the music industry, or you know, the funding path for an artist. You know, you can go that route, and you can do it nowadays. You don't need to get that backing. You can take that route of, you know, slowly incrementing, building what you do, you know, and you're not having to take investment, and you're not having to compromise on your vision. Or you can actually go that route, you know, get some seed funding, find somebody, whether it's family members or whether it's, you know, somebody, a manager or someone who's taken interest, is going to invest that first money. And then that kind of, you know, that VC round might be, you know, you might sign to a major label, but you've got to understand that if you sign to a label, if you take that institutional investment, then you've got to hit that home run. And the problem with that is, you know, the model of VCs is that only 1 in 10 companies is, you know, they'll have spent money. So it is a risk if you go, and I think in music nowadays, one of the really exciting things is artists are so much more empowered to go that slower route, you know, and they can do a lot of their things themselves, or could even be, you know, fan finance, which is an exciting new model. So.
And with VC funding, you also need to get out, don't you? You also, after a period of time, you need to leave your business, that's right?
Yeah, at some point, if somebody's put money into your business, they're going to expect money out of it, and that's either to grow, like heavily grow revenue and then build a sustainable revenue model. If you've taken on a lot of VC funding, then if you're showing a lot of revenue, it's probably, you know, doing an IPO, which is to kind of, you know, go public. So we've seen people like Zynga and LinkedIn and people like that. I think there's a few other examples recently.
Groupon.
Yeah, Groupon. Or it could be through an acquisition, so it could be somebody else, you know, like purchasing the company or something like that.
Adrian, you do 2 different things. How do you balance the 2? And is it useful doing 2 different things? Do they kind of feed into each other?
They do feed into each other. Obviously, they come from different places and slightly different motivations. But there's an awful lot of overlap, particularly with the fact that the programming of Norwich Sound and Vision does involve a significant conference side, and there's quite a strong kind of sync panel. Or there's a couple of panels that we do on that. Plus the fact that it's called Sound and Vision because it incorporates film as well as music. But in terms of balancing it, I mean, it's something that I've always done personally. Done lots of things from record labels, from fanzines, club nights, all those sorts of things. So it's not unusual for me to have other things going on at once. But I think I'm finding generally with the sort of concept of a portfolio career in the arts generally is something that's happening more and more, I think. and it's something that I suppose it's easier to do those sorts of things nowadays. It's, you know, people are more empowered, as you were saying, to you know, do their own thing. But I mean, we at CME, we also do a significant sort of music education program, but all our tutors are all freelance artists. But we do have to kind of train them how to do that juggling, because there is a skill to it. So, what was the question?
Yeah, no, I think you answered it, that's fine.
Ruth, can I just add one more thing to that? When looking at those different routes, I think it's really important, if you are an artist or a band or someone doing something creatively, you know, you have a creative output, I think you have to choose quite early on which path you're going to go down, because, you know, at some point, if you go down one path, you might have to compromise your art. And thinking about the goals, you know, do you want to just be good enough so that you can get booked every weekend and you know, make enough money to do your, you know, what is your art as a full-time job, you know, or is it enough, you know, just that you want to go out there, you don't necessarily need to make money on a tour just because you're using, you know, your music as a vehicle to have an amazing life experience, or do you want to, you know, is it because you want to be a star? Is it because, you know, you want to be seen and get your music heard by millions of people? And I think sometimes if you know, bands tend to wobble, and I find it quite interesting. I always ask that question to bands, you know, what are you trying to do? And it's amazing the amount of people who don't really know. They've got some idea of what the traditional path is, like, oh, we want to get signed to a major record label, as if getting signed to a label is an end in itself, and it's not. So you have to really make that decision quite early on.
A question for all of you, how important is collaboration in what you do? So working with other people, whether it be other organisations, the media, online communities, how important is that to your businesses? Adrian?
With Norwich Sound and Vision, obviously collaboration is key, and it's the whole model, and it's all about getting buy-in from local authorities, businesses, anyone with a you know, a stake in the development of the creative industries in these things. So that's quite a lot of people. So essentially, that's just about having a consistent message that all those people understand and feel that there's value in, you know, in their involvement. For Portmanteau, not so much. It is sort of almost operating a silo. We're not too public about advertising the service we do or who we do it with. I mean, we get approached from clients quite a lot, and that seems to happen quite organically. So, yeah, not so much that, but absolutely, Norwich Sound and Vision, it's all about trying to get a, you know, good consortium of people together.
And do you guys collaborate with other music organisations, or do you kind of stick to doing things completely on your own?
I think at the beginning of the company we collaborated a lot more, because you know, really benefits you. Partner with other people. I think now we've, you know, settled as a company, probably not so much. So, you know, I would look at some of the bigger bands that we work with on tours as being collaborations where there's a trust. We're providing something for them, they're providing something for us. So.
And sort of the final question from me really is around being here in India. So obviously you've been here for a few days. Are you here to explore business opportunities in India, and what do you see as those opportunities being? So I guess going around, starting with you, Adrian.
We're certainly interested in trying to bring Indian artists over for the festival for next year. If there's a way of making that happen, we're trying to build more of an international flavour to the whole festival, so definitely interested in that. I'm definitely looking again now for new content to represent for license to film and TV. So, you know, be very interested in anything of that sort from India. And I suppose the other way around, that, you know, ultimately we would like more sort of market penetration in terms of getting involved with brands and TV companies with the music that we already represent.
Yeah, I think for me it was, actually we were at a conference called Nokia Music Connects in Bombay a couple of days ago, and Jordan, who's the manager of Linkin Park, actually, you know, he kind of expressed my thoughts quite well on stage, and he was, you know, he knows, you know, now that they've got such a direct relationship with their fans, they know that they, you know, India is actually, you know, one of their top 10 markets, but yet they've never done anything, they've never invested any time. and he just senses that there's some really huge opportunities, and that was why he was in India, was to really go back with something concrete and say, well, this is we can actually start doing things because we know there's an existing market and we know that it's going to grow. And I think that's exactly the same for SoundCloud. We know that there's a lot of people in India who are using the platform just because it's so accessible and can be used internationally. So I think for us it's just really to learn more about who are the people already using it, and then see what are the opportunities beyond that. So and I think that's not necessarily just in the music space. I know it seems like there's a really big growing electronic music scene, but also a great indie scene. But then also the more traditional industries, the Bollywood industry and the traditional Indian music.
Joe?
I think India, there's a huge opportunity, but it's going to take a few more visits for me to really start to understand what those opportunities are. Only because this is my first trip here, and just what I've seen, Mumbai and here already, has given me a lot to think about. And then when I, factor in the size of the country and the different areas of India, it seems very different culturally and religiously and everything else. Yeah, I'm kind of like just trying to get my head into trying to understand it more, to find out actually whether the things we offer actually aren't things that are needed here. Maybe we need to tailor our service in a different way for the Indian audience, and offer some same things. I'm not sure yet, so I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so one of the things that struck me whilst being over, I mean, it's the same. There's a lot of other emerging markets for us, Brazil, Mexico, China, Japan. I think one thing that's really exciting about, and one thing generally, I mean, that's a real kind of trump to play when you're dealing with anyone back in the UK industry, is everyone's looking, like the world is so much smaller now that it's a lot easier for us to do business and have that be meaningful. I think one thing that's particularly attractive about India is that if we were to capitalise on our existing market in Japan, it would take a lot more resources, because we would have to localise, being online we'd have to localise it, would all have to be in Japanese characters, or certain markets would have to read right to left rather than left to right, and India's actually we share a lot of the same cultures. The people who would be using the site in India are probably very kind of literate in the internet, and and be used to kind of interacting with English language sites. So I think there's a really amazing and exciting kind of base to build on.
Great. Are there any questions for the panelists from the audience? Okay. I think everyone's...
the picture.
Yeah, okay. I think everyone's quite keen to go to NH7. So I'd just like to have a round of applause and thank the panelists.